Today, Trump celebrates a Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. Hungary's Viktor Orban visits Ukraine, and Israel renews strikes on Khan Younis in Gaza. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Tuesday, the 2nd of July, 2024. Yesterday, the US Supreme Court ruled 6-3 along ideological lines in favour of former President Trump in regards to presidential immunity. The case, Trump versus United States, was specifically about whether Trump could be held responsible for his actions leading up to the January the 6th riots, as brought upon by the indictment issued by the DOJ Special Counsel Jack Smith. The Supreme Court stated that presidents could not be held legally responsible for actions that fit under constitutional duties or official acts as defined by the court. Basically, if the president used their office, for example, to talk to or instruct the vice president on an issue deemed legally within bounds, then that's protected, and they have absolute immunity from criminal prosecution. But if the president was deemed to go beyond that or commit unofficial acts, those actions could be used as evidence against the president in a criminal trial once they leave. However, the court said that it would not outline what an official act is or isn't, leaving it up to lower courts to decide. But those decisions could be appealed up to the Supreme Court should the defendant want to. This caused a political firestorm in the US, with Democrats arguing that the decision legalized presidents to do basically whatever they wanted without repercussion, so long as it was defined as an official act, such as ordering the military to assassinate a political opponent, while Republicans said that the decision does no such thing and that it officially clears Trump of any wrongdoing. Trump himself stated on Truth Social that the decision was brilliantly written and wise, and a big win for our Constitution and democracy. President Biden, meanwhile, stated that the court's ruling was a terrible disservice to the people of this nation, and that no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. It should be noted that this does not end the charges brought upon Trump for actions leading up to January the 6th, but it is a considerable setback. The next steps for the case are for Tanya Chutkan, the case's presiding judge, to determine what actions in the indictment are protected. The US Supreme Court, ever since President Trump filled the vacancy left by Ruth Bader Ginsburg in October 2020, which gave it a 6-3 Conservative majority, has faced accusations of judicial activism and overreach, with Conservative Justice Clarence Thomas's dealings with Republican donor Harlan Crow raising questions of its independence from private interests. It's fair to say that these sentiments, were Trump's appointments to the court ruled in favour of him, are likely not going to go away anytime soon. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like G Utopia, then consider joining the new TLDR membership programme for just $1.99. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban has arrived in Kyiv to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, marking the first time Orban has visited Ukraine since the start of the war with Russia. He's also one of only 2 EU leaders, the other being Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer, to have met with Putin in this time. Orban, who took on the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union on the 1st of July, has been the EU's most prominent critic of the bloc's Ukraine policy, having repeatedly used his veto to block military aid packages. Orban also left the room during a meeting last December in which EU leaders decided to begin accession talks for Ukraine to avoid having to vote. Orban's government has justified its position by claiming that Ukraine is failing its Hungarian minority, whose population is about 100,000 near Ukraine's border with Hungary. According to officials, Orban and Zelensky will meet and deliver brief statements, but will not hold a press conference. In December, Orban told reporters he'd accepted an invitation from Zelensky to visit Kyiv, but said, "I told him I'd be at his disposal. We just have to clarify one question. About what?" Now over to Gaza, where hundreds are fleeing Khan Younis, following a fresh wave of Israeli strikes in southern Gaza. The strikes came after a rare rocket barrage claimed by the militant group Islamic Jihad, which has fought alongside Hamas. The IDF stated that 20 projectiles were identified coming from Khan Younis, most of which were intercepted by the Israeli military. A spokesperson for the IDF warned the nearby population that they must evacuate immediately, as troops are being prepared to enter the city for a new ground assault. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said the new evacuation order just shows yet again that no place is safe in Gaza for Palestinian civilians. Whilst Israel prepares a new assault on the southern Gazan city, in northern Israel, fears of an all-out escalation between Israel and Hezbollah haven't subsided. Even though escalating strikes between the two have appeared to level off this week, following an intense escalation this month, Iran's aide to the Iranian supreme leader has warned Israel that Iran would use all means to back Hezbollah if Israel launches a full-blown war. In other news, Turkey's President Erdogan has accused opposition parties of stoking racism and xenophobia, specifically against Syrians, after anti-Syrian riots in Turkey's central Kayseri province. Riots broke out overnight on Sunday after a Syrian man was arrested on allegations that he had sexually abused his 7-year-old female cousin. The news spread across social media and local residents rioted, flipping cars and setting Syrian-owned shops ablaze. Police intervened and at least 67 people were detained, according to the country's interior minister. President Erdogan gave a televised address on Monday in response to the violence, saying nothing can be achieved by fueling xenophobia and hatred of refugees in society, and going on to accuse the opposition of poisonous discourse. For context, Turkey hosts the largest number of refugees worldwide, including some 3.6 million registered Syrian refugees who fled neighbouring Syria since the civil war broke out in 2011. Some opposition parties advocate returning refugees to Syria, amid a rising anti-migrant sentiment in the country. The riots in Turkey also had an impact on the other side of the border in Syria, as demonstrators in the town of Al-Ray gathered to prevent the entry of Turkish convoys and trucks, while video showed locals in the Syrian town of Atarab, currently under the control of Turkish troops, chanting in opposition to the Turkish army's presence. Our final uplifting news story today is the discovery of a new species of sea cucumber. Synallactes mcdanieli, or the McDaniel sea cucumber, named after Canadian marine scientist Neil McDaniel, is a pink creature with 214 tiny feet, which ranges in size from just under 9 inches to 12 inches long, according to a study published last week in the Biodiversity Data Journal. The animal is found in the northeastern Pacific, along the western coast of Canada, and up into the Gulf of Alaska. The squishy creatures are covered in as many as 120 long, fleshy papillae, and their body is described as firm with slightly rough skin. Before we go, I just wanted to let you know that on Thursday night, we're doing an election night live stream. There we'll be reacting live to the exit poll result as it comes in, explaining what's happening and interacting directly with you. If you want access, you'll need a copy of our magazine Too Long, which I'll let Jack explain to you now.
This issue is focused on the UK election, diving deep into the campaign, the results, and how the winners plan to fix Britain. It's more than just Britain, though, with stories including the European parliamentary elections, the countries likely to join the EU next, the latest from Gaza, the rise of Milei, and, of course, the US election. Now, we've decided to make the magazine for 2 reasons. Firstly, it allows our journalists to write in more detail, diving deeper and ignoring algorithmic restrictions to produce the best work we can. And secondly, it's a good way for you to support TLDR and will help us to produce free YouTube videos as long as we can. If you're interested, then you can pick up a copy from our website, where we're selling 2 editions of the magazine. Firstly, there's the standard edition, and then there's the premium edition, which gets your name printed in the thank you section of the magazine, access to our behind the scenes podcast, and exclusive access to our election night live stream, where we'll be reacting to the exit poll with you as it happens. Oh, and by the way, we're going to be making an issue of Too Long every 4 months. So if you want to ensure that you never miss an issue, then you can subscribe, which gets you a 25% discount. If you have more questions, there's a full Q&A linked in the description, where you'll also find a link to our store. And while you're there, make sure you use the code ELECTIONWEEK to get an additional £2 off any purchase. Thanks so much for hearing me out, and if you are interested, please do pick up a copy, as it's a great way to support our journalism and help us to continue making free YouTube videos as long as we can.